Hey everyone. This week we're going to have a second mini project, and this will be an annotated bibliography. The topic for your annotated bibliography this week will be on climate change, and you'll develop a specific issue to research. You'll create an annotated bibliography of sources. Your annotated bib will have 5 sources, and you can choose from these: magazine, newspaper article, journal article, a web page, a government source, a video, or a blog. So these 3 you should get from the CPCC library. So what is an annotated bibliography? Well, basically it's a reference page that includes notes about each source. So sometimes this is a freestanding activity. You might have an instructor who just wants you to produce an annotated bib of sources. More often it's part of a larger project. So what's a common activity is to ask you early on in your research project to produce an annotated bibliography to show your instructor what sources you're finding and where do you think you'll use those sources. So your annotated bib will start off with an introduction. So this introduction tells your readers what the annotated bibliography is about, just like you'd have an introduction for any project. So I have an introduction here, and you can look at this in your own time. I have a sample for you. This is an introduction to my annotated bibliography that tells my readers that my annotated bibliography has to do with climate change and seaweed. There's often a second paragraph which provides just a couple sentences of background information for the reader. So my background information is kind of encyclopedia oriented, just sort of some facts about what seaweed is and what it's used for. So I have an introduction and background, and then I start my citations. So each citation will come in 3 stages. There'll be the citation, just like you've always done with a reference page, and to that you will add a summary and an analysis, we call it. So we start off with our citation. That's going to be the first thing you do with each source. All right, so that's step 1. The second step is a quick summary, no more than 2 sentences or so. What I want you to do in this summary is just a couple sentences. Different instructors may have other things they want you to do. So you'll include the source author's name, if there is one, the publication date, and the title of the source, and you'll write a 1 or 2 sentence summary. Now this summary shouldn't have any personal observations, no opinions, no details, no examples. Let's look at an example of what a summary should look like. So up here we have the citation, right? This is what my citation looked like. And to that citation, I have a first paragraph. And we'll look at some differences on the next slide. But you'll see that I have the author's name, the date, the title of the article I'm summarizing, and here just a couple sentences telling what that article is about, what its main claim, and maybe what its subclaims are, but no details, no examples. So in the citation, we use an APA, the author's last name and the first initial. But when we actually introduce it in the paragraph, we don't use the first name at all, initial or a full name. We don't use anything. Some sources may have a month and a day sometimes, if it's a newspaper article, for example, or a blog posting, along with its yearly date. In the paragraph itself, we can minimize that. We don't have to have that big piece of interrupting information. We just limit it to the year. Most importantly, the title of the article in the citation is done in what we call sentence case. Only the first letter of the title is capitalized and the rest are in lowercase. And we see quite frequently kind of a subtitle. So we have our title, a colon, and then the subtitle. We act like we're starting over and we capitalize that first letter there as well. The only other words you would capitalize, and the database won't do this for you, you have to fix this, are things like place names, names of people, names of universities, names of types of animals, whatever you're supposed to do, that's going to be capitalized. The citation won't correct that, you have to. What you're going to see in the essay itself is what you're probably used to doing in MLA, right? We always use the quotation marks around your title, and all of the words are capitalized with the exception of what we call the little words, right? All right, so just pay attention to those two differences as you go through the sample. The second paragraph is what we call the analysis. All right, so we had our citation, our summary, and now our analysis. Each source has those three parts to it. Again, depending on the instructor and what they want you to do with that analysis paragraph, your tasks can vary. It's usually something about assessing the credibility of the source or explaining how you're going to use the source in your project. Those are two common ways to write this analysis paragraph. What I'm asking you to do is the first one, assess the credibility of the source, and I'll provide information on how to assess a source's credibility. So in a couple of sentences, you'll provide that assessment, and that's, again, what I've done here. I've told you who the author is and told you a little bit about it. So in this final slide, we see a sample of what an entry for one source would look like. So you'll have the citation, and I apologize for the extra blue here. I couldn't seem to get it to erase. That's in hanging indent. Your first paragraph, which is a summary, and the second paragraph, which is the analysis.